Hello and welcome back. In this tutorial we will be creating a base plant blueprint actor that we will use to make all our different plants from. Here is a demonstration on the outcome in case you have missed the previous tutorial. So we're going to go over growing the plant, growing the produce, and the produce ripening. First of all, I'm just going to change the color here because I noticed in the video it wasn't very visible. But for the sake of follow along, just make it so you guys can see it. So I changed to purple, pink, whatever that is. We are going to be copying over the materials. We want the map 1A into our materials, copy here. Now I don't want this material instance. We want to go to our MISC and we want to get our leaves material parent. I'm going to copy that as well. If you notice, we also reference the same file for the base color, the same texture, sorry, and this normal map texture. So we're going to copy them over as well into our texture, copy, and copy. That done, materials, I'm just going to rename these. We're going to add a sway. And we're going to open this up. So this is sway. So these two are the same and they reference the same texture. So when we replace them from our copied over texture, we'll just add here underscore sway just so we can differentiate them. So we're going to have that and that. Delete. Got this as our normal, and we had this as our base, and it was the same. It's the same thing to do this as have two. Now to create our sway, we're going to create a parameter. Just hold one click, convert to parameter is the easiest way. We're going to call this plant sway speed. And we are going to create a panner. And from that we are going to go through a sine wave. So we're going to input a number. We are going to set it through the panner, which will scroll through that number. And we're going to set this to our world position offset. We set this parameter here to 0.2. Okay, reset. It's always something simple. Okay, so that is our basic sway. And obviously the higher you increase this number, the faster it'll sway. 0.2 is a nice number, I like that. So I'm just going to copy this and we are going to go to our new set of materials and we're just going to paste that into our main material for the plant base itself, and save. Okay, with that done, we are now going to copy over our meshes. Now I am going to go over the chili, and we want to use the large model. I just find that easiest to orientate. The actual prop is just on its side, so we want to use this one. We're going to copy that to our, scroll up, meshes, copy, and if you see the plant here, it says bush 3 chili. So we come down here, scroll to bush 3. Here's the one without the chilies on it. So we want that large bush. We want to copy that to our meshes. Copy. And that's everything we need mesh wise for our plant. So now we're going to go into these save all. What we can do is you want to set it up with our material, and then we are going to go to our blueprints. We're going to create a blueprint class, an actor. Now we are going to call this BP underscore plant growth. Now we are going to add a static mesh. We will call this produce. We will set it up with a tag. And this is just so we can find it later on. So you want to create an array, and we want to call this produce, produce. Now that that's set up, I'm just going to duplicate one. So we've got 2 now. Now we got 3. Now we got 4. And this basically an array would be position 0, position 1, position 2, position 3. So now we want to now add our static mesh, and it's on the bottom. Anyways, at our plant, we are going to add our chili, and we are going to select the chili. Oh, I believe you can. Oh, oops. We are going to go to our material, add our material to, okay, definitely not that one. And then move together. So our plant, everything's set up. Compile, save. We are going to add a variable is ripe, question mark. We will compile so we have access to the value, and it needs to be false. Okay, so what do we want to do now? We're going to delete everything while the event play. The first thing we want to do is we want to set our produce list. So we are going to do that by component and by tag. We just want the tag name produce, produce, and we need to select a static mesh component, and what this will do is it's going to look through this blueprint and come up with anything with tags. So we should have brought that over. Yeah, so this here, otherwise you can just Control C if you want to double confirm it and paste it in. Anyways, we want to now promote this to a variable, and because we have static mesh component here, you'll see that it is a static mesh variable. I'm going to call this the produce list, and we set that. We are now going to set our material, set material, and luckily you can just actually link in an array, because this is an array type, into nodes like this instead of one single target, a whole array, and it will go through the whole array. In the beginning I was setting a for loop and doing it that way until I found out you can just straight up hook it in and it does for everything. So we want to set this material, in case you brought an asset over or something like that and it's not set up to the right material, we are going to search for our, because I wrote SWA on it, it's got here, so we want this one, the material polygon 1A, don't worry about the leaves, and we want to set relative scale. Set relative 3D scale, and this is to set our produce to 0, so you can't see it when the plant sprouts or when you plant it. So our target, we can loop through here or just get our keep it neater. So you'll notice if you get our thing, you can't, for some reason it I don't know if once they set it or what, but if you go, it wasn't letting me do it before, if you just go get, that works. I don't know why. Right, so what we've done now is we have created a produce list by searching for the tag for the mesh and the static mesh components, We have created a list for that. We have set its material to the right material that we need. We are now going to set the scale to 0. And after that, we are just going to create a timeline, add a timeline, and this will be the plant growth. So we're going to double click to enter. We're going to add a track, a float track, which basically means it's going to output a float variable. I'm going to call this track size. Because this will output a number that is between 0 and 1, and that will be the actual scale factor of our plant over a period of time. So our length, just want to go 1, and we can come back, we'll scale this graph accordingly to set different times, but you want it to be set up as 1 so it'll work out later. If you control click or shift click, you can add a point, or you can right click, add a key float. So what you want to do is at time 0, you want this plant, when you plant it, to be, will start at 0.25, and that's so when you plant the plant there is a small plant there, so you know that something's actually happened. Otherwise it just looks a bit weird when you plant it and there's absolutely nothing there. I mean, you could if that's what you were going for, but I just found it looks a bit strange. And at time 1 we want a value of 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom to fit and zoom to fit. That's set up. Alright, so now as we're updating, we want to actually I can just Control D, we want to set the relative scale, but this time of the plant itself, and all this fires off straight away. So what we see is when this fires, we ain't going to see any of this. We're going to see the first value out of this time graph, and I'm just going to plug that straight in. It's just going to convert it, but it doesn't matter. And our target will be our plant. Keep it a little neater. Horrible. So if we compile and save, we go to our viewport, and we hit simulate. Yeah, you'll see over 1 second it grows from 0.25 to 1 scale factor. The next thing we could do is we are going to find it easier if you hit it on world scale, and we're just going to turn off grid divisions. We're just going to quickly place these. W. What you want to do is you want to go to real time and set off, and that will not work properly. It's supposed to keep it set, but for some reason for me it does this, which is why I hadn't done it before. So we're just going to go real time, because then it actually, at least it's consistent and I can see what I'm doing. So we're just going to place our chilies in, and it's pretty good, even if you can see like there, that's alright, you don't notice it, and because it's the same color, if it sticks out a little bit, it doesn't look odd. Found a good spot though as well, was just on these joins. Alright, yeah, you get a bit faster at it. So we've done 3, 2, raise this up. You need to rotate, W move. Oh, there you go. And I've just done 4, there's nothing stopping you from doing more or less. The reason why we set it to make a list with the tag of these is so that in the future, when we change our child to have more produce or less, the list is updated by the amount and not just like a set list, which is pretty handy. Rotate, W. Yeah, it depends when you want to get above it to the side. Up. Yes, good. Sorry, not there. Okay, that's pretty good. So now you should see that the fruit just disappeared. We are going to actually take out all of that, but what we really want is these placeholders, so we'll be taking out all the meshes afterwards. So let's come back. We are now going to set the produce growth, so when we have finished, just another thing is go from play instead of play from start, because I won't be recalling this. It's just going to happen once because your plant doesn't regrow. If you do for some reason want to set it up as a loop where it does it, you'll have to go into the play from start, because otherwise when you do it, read this graph again, it'll spit out the last known point, which is 1. Anyways, back to finished. Now we're going to do another time graph. Actually, I want to duplicate this guy because it should be pretty much set up. So we're going to call this produce growth. So on completion, play from start, enter, double click, and now instead of 0.25, we want to just make this 0. We want to scale both axes, and that's fine now. So we go from 0.25 to 1 because we want we just want to grow from nothing. And the interesting thing is, because we do set relative 3D scale, it sets its relative 3D scale from, so it sets its scale from the plant. So you'll notice that they actually grow straight out of here. There's different ways, like attaching it to the default series, which is what I did first. It ends up, I don't know, it just ends up going from other places. But if you just do it this way, it works quite nicely. And so we're just going to do the same thing again. Set the relative scale, update, and this is going to be our new scale size. Our target is now our produce list. And that should be it for the produce. Sweet. So notice how it actually grows from the plant out, which is quite nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a dynamic material. Create dynamic material instance. Now this is what we're going to use to ripen the plant, ripen the produce, and so we need to sort that out. I did notice now that I haven't actually changed this material to include our copy texture. So this is our sway. I'm just going to bring that in, we're going to delete that one, and so now that's updated all our materials, and everything we're referencing in the materials is all in our project. So that way, if we keep consistent with this method, then when we're finished this part or whatever, you can just straight up delete everything in Polygon Farm, only have what assets that you're referring directly to in a template for you to then copy or use however you want without having everything else in there. Anyways, we are now going to go to our materials, and we need to create that ripen material. So I'm actually just going to duplicate it, Control D. We are going to rename it with ripen, take that little one out, open it up. I'm just going to save and close the other one. Now we're going to add a 3 vector. We're going to do this the easy way. I have a video on how to change the UV or add a UV mapping to your FBX or your mesh, and that way you can change colors of various parts and faces on the model. But for this, I just want the rid of the mesh. Just for this, I want the entire produce to be one color. So it's just going to be this green color. That's the same color as the actual plant. So let's close that. So this is the easy and quick way of doing it. Otherwise, I'll link in my video on how to actually change the UV mapping on meshes. Now what we can do is we will open this. We will come back here, and I happen to know by checking the UV mapping that this is the color of the plant and the top of the chili. So once again, that's the middle one of the first green. Alright, and what we want to do now is we want to make a loop. So we are going to drag off and go loop, which is a linear interpolate. We are going to promote this to a parameter. We are going to call this our ripen parameter. We are going to slot this into B. I think I've got it around the wrong way now, actually, but it doesn't matter. I can change it. So in our parameter, if we go to our ripen, and oh, we do not want that. So we need to set our slider max to 1. Okay, so this is just the inverse of what we want. So I'm just going to change them. So now what will happen is we can access this material, or specifically the material instance that we're about to create of that material. Close that, and we can change this parameter with our time graph. What that will do is it'll go from the green produce to the red point, which is actually this color here. So that's the red one. Color saved. Okay, so that's done. We just need to go search for ripen, and that's our sway. Copy. We need to set the material. Not the produce, but we will get our list. And we are going to set it to this material. We are then going to duplicate our timeline. Duplicate this one because this one's got 0.25 beginning value, this one's got 0. So we will rename this to produce ripen. And so on our update, no, not from there because otherwise we can't access it. We need to go from we need a reference from this create dynamic material instance, and then we can go set scalar parameter. So we can this is so we can actually access that ripen value. RIPN, and there. So just double check this is all good. So we can go from 0 to 1, length of 1. Yep, this is all good. Let's just test that. Simulate. I think I know what that is. So our value needs to be 0 from the beginning. That needs to be set like that and saved. So if you notice, one way of seeing it looks like that if the value is 1 in here, and if it's 0 it looks like that. Just a quick way of figuring that out. So now that is saved as correct. If we go here, and there you go. So if you have followed along, congratulations, you have grown your first artificial chili. Now if we go back to the event graph, we want to, when we're finished, we want to print string just to give us some sort of indication. If we place the actor in the actual map, when it's finished growing, it will say ready to harvest. If I can spell, I like to make it red. And I'll just give this 5 seconds, just a bit longer than 2 seconds. Also before that I want to set our isRipe boolean that we made, and we want to set that to true. And then now at the end of all this we can access this value if we need to interact with the plant, which you probably will if you want to harvest it. Save that. Now if we go to our blueprints, get our actor, place it in the world, and hit play. Ready to harvest. Pointed at the screen, couldn't even see it. Anyways, this takes us to a point where we have this all set up. It's a bit more basic than I had on my other one. If I show you, so this one here, you've got heaps of things we can change. This is pretty long already, so next time we can go over this, either that or I'll do creating children, plants so we can actually make the different kinds. If we do that, then we can actually start using it. We can always come back to the parent class, which is the blueprint we were making, and add all the stuff, and it automatically comes to the children. So that's pretty good. What we will do now is erase all our lovely work. So what we want to do is I like to just select them all. Now we're just gonna hit back to default, and we're also going to hit back to default for the location and rotation. Leave the scale factors alone for now. Going to compile and save, and that there is, oh, it should update there anyways sometime soon, probably when I close and open or something. But this empty actor now is ready to be your base plant structure. We will then, in the next video anyways, or one after that, we will go, you just go child blueprint class, you'll go chili, and then you will go through and set the things. So that's just a sneak peek of what's going to happen next. But we'll delete that for now. Thanks.